Yeah, so I guess for everyone who's watching the recording, we're going over rooting the forest box. We currently have a shell as SVC alfresco on here. And now we're currently downloading Bloodhound because we're going to use that to get to see all the permissions that we have. Okay, so if everyone has Bloodhound installed, and feel free to stop me in the chat if you don't, wherever you get cloned it to, if you just cd into that directory where you cloned it from, and then you cd into the directory called ingesters, and then you do ls on that, you can see there's a sharphound.exe and a sharphound.ps1. Like I was saying before, sharphound is what Bloodhound uses to collect all the permission information from the computer. And it comes in two forms. You can either do an exe or a PowerShell script. We're going to do the PowerShell script because it's just easier. So if you have an Evo WinRM session open right now, like you should have, you want to upload the Sharphound to this shell, so you have it on the remote computer. And to do that, you want to do upload, and then you want to specify the file you want to upload. In my case, mine is located in /opt bloodhound ingesters, and then it's sharphound.ps1, and then you just put a dot for the current directory. So wherever you get cloned Bloodhound, make sure you specify that path, and then it should upload. It'll start uploading. Could take a minute or two, but then you will have it on that computer.
So Sharphound is what exactly?
Sharphound is a tool within inside Bloodhound. Bloodhound is sort of the nice GUI that you use to see all the nice information. Sharphound is what gets all that nice information. So Sharphound is a script that you're uploading onto the remote machine to collect all permission data. Okay, so it just uploaded. So if I do ls again, I can see now there's a sharphound.ps1 on the remote machine. So now what I want to do is I want to import all of the commands that come with it. So this is more of like a knowing how to use PowerShell and that sort of thing. So you want to so a PowerShell file has like modules, or can have modules inside of it, which are basically like functions. We want to import all those modules into our PowerShell command line so we can use them as normal commands. So to do that, we do import -module and then /sharphound the file ps1, and that'll import basically all the modules that are inside of Sharphound. All right, and that includes, which is specifically the command called invoke Bloodhound. So now if we do menu, it'll list all of our available commands, and invoke Bloodhound is one of them. If I typed menu before we did that import, it would not have shown up. I probably should have ran it just to prove it, but just believe me. So now that we have an invoke Bloodhound, which is the function that's going to get all of our permission data, we want to run invoke Bloodhound, obviously. And then this full command is just something that you would just Google for how to use this command. But we're going to specify the domain. And then we're going to specify the LDAP user, SVC alfresco in this case. And then the LDAP password, which is service with a 3. And then the collection method, which is going to be all. And then the zip file name that we want to put all this into, which I'll just call stuff.zip. Okay, so that's the full command. Let's try running that. And sometimes it can take a while because it's doing a lot of stuff. Okay, so it seems to have finished. Let's check here. And now I do have a stuff.zip file here. So yeah, we basically just ran this command, and this command collected all of the permission data from the computer, and put it into a nice little zip file called stuff.zip. This .bin file is a temporary file that it's created and I guess just didn't delete, but we can ignore that. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to speak up. I'll leave this command up on the screen for a minute or two to let people.
Yeah, look at stuff that by them.
Really? Okay. Let me check.
I think I put out that password. User.
You ran the import module one, right?
Yes, because the menu has it.
You type your name.
That's like, yeah, that's like all the time.
Did it not work for you, Daniel?
It did. It didn't put it in zip. It just has all the JSON.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have two. Oh, now you. Okay. Oh wait, here it is.
I get two stuff zips now.
Yeah, just do the most recent one.
Okay.
If you're having issues, for people in the chat, if you're just getting a bunch of JSON files, try running it a couple times, and it'll eventually make it into .zip.
Oh, there it is.
So name so hard. You got an underscore six, underscore 7.
All right. So, if anyone is not at this point, speak up now, either in person or in the chat, and I can help you. If not, we're going to go ahead and move on. And just for everyone to know, this command is using us to help us get root. It's not a requirement. This is going to help us visualize the permissions that we have, so then we can try to exploit it. So if you're worried that you can't get your Bloodhound working right now, it's okay. You don't actually need it to get the root. This is going to help us understand what permissions we have so we can then get root. So it's not an absolute requirement that you get the setup, but it is definitely recommended. Okay, so now that I have the stuff.zip on here, I'm going to go ahead and download it. So to download it, it's literally just download the file I want to download, which is stuff.zip. And I'm just going to, then the name of the file you want it to be locally, which I'm just going to call it, you can call it the same thing, just put a dot if you want to. I'm going to call mine just here.zip just because I think I already have stuff.zip on mine. So now it's just going to download. So now I'm going to go to back to where my directory is, which is in HTV. And then I should now have a here. Oh, you know what? Did it? Oh, no, wait.
I do not see it in my blood.
Actually, let me just exit out of this.
It went to my forest directory.
Oh, it'll go into whatever directory that you ran the evil winrm command from, since that's considered the home directory. So in my case, it was just in my root directory. So keep that in mind when you're looking for your zip file once you've downloaded it. But here it is for me, here.zip. All right. I can't remember, Brandon. Did you have to run an install for Bloodhound, or you just had to do a git clone on it? Oh, you did? Oh, Scott's here? Okay. Scott, do you remember if we had to install Bloodhound or just get it downloaded? Yeah, look up the GitHub and let me know.
There is no make file.
There's no make file. Which makes me think I don't think you did have to install it. Yeah, I don't think you had to install it. Oh, right. And is that just app-get install? Oh, Scott said he installed Bloodhound with APT because we had to use Neo4j. Okay, so I guess let me see if this works. Is it called Bloodhound? No, it's not called Bloodhound. Are you sure, Scott? Or what was the package called? Or I'll do app search. Yeah. Well, everyone should get cloned already. So I think if you just do apt install neo4j. Yeah. So you want to do make sure everyone who's needs to get Bloodhound installed. You make sure you've cloned it from the Bloodhound GitHub, and then also that you ran apt install neo4j, neo the number 4 and then j, because we're going to use that as like it's the database that Bloodhound uses for like parsing all the information. Apt-get install Bloodhound. Okay, or you can just do apt-get install Bloodhound. It should do the same thing. Shouldn't make a difference. Maybe it will. Do apt-get install Bloodhound just to be safe. Oh, you need that too. Yeah, so you want to make sure you install Bloodhound and Neo4j. Oh, Scott says it includes Neo4j, so either one works. It'll just skip that part for you if you already have Neo4j installed. Yeah. Okay, so just to recap, make sure you do just do apt-get install Bloodhound, which is that command there. For what? I think I know how to do it from here. We just have to run the console and then. But keep that open just in case I. It does mean you change the password, and since mine's not a new install, it's not going to ask me that. But I'll have to let people know. Okay, so I'll go ahead and assume that people have Bloodhound installed. Again, if I'm going too quickly, please say something in the chat. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to actually run Neo4j first and then Bloodhound, if I'm correct. Neo4j console is the first command we're going to run. Okay, let that start up. Okay, cool. So now we want to go to the browser here, and we want to go to this specific port that it told us to. Oh yeah, sorry, 7474. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy. And then I will go to it here. So now it brings us to the Neo4j browser. Now, if you might get presented with a login screen, is that right, Brandon?
Yes.
You probably get presented with a login screen, and then what you want to do is enter in Neo4j for the username and Neo4j for the password. And then it should ask you for then to change the password. Just change it to whatever you want. You can change the password or whatever. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Cool. So what does it show you next, Brandon? I completely forgot. Okay, so now that you've done that, now go back to the terminal here. Make sure Neo4j stays running. So let's open up a new tab here. Here it is, and we want to start a Bloodhound by just typing in Bloodhound. And you want to start that up. We'll hit enter, and then you get a nice GUI here, and it'll ask you then to log in, and you want to put in the username and the password that you just set.
Wait, how do we search again?
Huh?
How do we search?
How do you search?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Let's go back to the terminal.
Okay.
And then in a new tab, yeah, keep that one open. Type in Bloodhound. Oh, and then we'll ask you to log in. Put in Neo4j as you said.
Got it.
did you get to that point?
Yeah, I'm already here. I was just wondering because it took me a long time to get.
Okay, so again, if you're not at this point, you want me to wait or slow down, say something in the chat on your mic, whatever you want to do. But yeah, please speak up because I want to make sure you guys are like understanding this. Okay, so I haven't heard anything. We're going to keep going. So now you should have Bloodhound open, which is a blank gray screen like this. What we can do here is I'm just going to like make this a little bit smaller. And I'm going to open up my, my files so I can view like my file browser essentially. And then I'm going to go find that zip file that, that Sharphound had made for me and that I downloaded. I'm just going to go find that, which in this case right here, it's here.zip. That was what I called mine. And all you have to do from here is just drag it into Bloodhound, the Bloodhound GUI, and it'll automatically unzip it and parse all the JSON for you. So I'm just going to drag it from here onto the screen, and you can see here it's now processing the file. So I'm just going to let that process until it's completely done. It says finish processing all the files, but you're still going to get a blank screen. That's okay. If we click here, we can see here that we now have some queries. So we can do a simple test to make sure it works. If we do like find shortest path to domain admin, we'll let that run. Usually doesn't take this long, but. Is it still taking that long for you? Did yours load?
Yes.
And what did you?
It's like a map.
Yep.
Awesome. That works for your
Let me try a different query. Usually doesn't take this long. Are you in the same point, Dave?
Yeah, mine's taking a minute.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do Bloodhound.
It's just something you just use whenever you're doing like some sort of AD environment. Just always run Bloodhound.
Where it's like not necessary,
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you really do need it because you're not gonna be able to figure out what you need to do without it. But yeah.
I didn't know to like. Does this work when you have just any machine that's computer, or does that have to be a user?
So there's a question in the chat. Yes, we actually did start recording this in the beginning. We're gonna upload this to. Where are we gonna upload this to, Daniel? The Slack, I guess.
We can upload it.
We can't do YouTube.
YouTube. No, we can do it unlisted on YouTube and just share that link. Like upload it as unlisted.
Okay. On the UFSIT channel. Okay, so we're gonna upload it to the YouTube as unlisted, and then we'll put the link to that on the Slack, and probably later tonight. So yeah, if you came in late, that's okay because you can rewatch the video. This is taking forever. I'm gonna close it and then start again. I don't remember what my password is actually. Okay, nothing should have been loaded though, so this should not work. Okay, cool. So now I go back, files. Let me try this one more time.
Oh, mine says select domain admin.
What did it say? Good question. Can I type stuff into here? I mean, the fact that that populates means that It's working. It's just taking forever.
One was fine. Everyone.
Yours is working fine? I mean, maybe you got lucky. Let me actually try run this up one more time, and I'll use my old zip file. So let me go to, so I think I had a zip here. I don't know. Call boop to, is that what it was?
Or it's just not my favorite.
What?
Or it's just some little baby.
Yeah. It's just a database that Bloodhound uses. Okay, so it's populating a bunch of stuff. Then all files finish processing. So let me do a search for this guy. It might be a Neo4j issue. The fact that it can't query it properly.
I don't know. What query did you use again?
I just typed in at the very top of the search bar, svc-alfresco. And then it should pre-populate for you. Oh, okay. I got an authentication failure. So that's why it's not working for me. Okay, so that makes sense. Let me actually go to, let me go. Did you get the same thing, Daniel? Okay, so we just didn't put in the right, maybe, yeah, you both have the wrong password set. Brandon, do you know how to change the password in Neo4j? Can you Google it? Connection credentials are stored in your web browser.
When you go to database info, it does.
Doesn't show?
It just says like info 0, computer 0, and awesome.
Okay. It says connection is stored in your web browser.
Why would I let you log in with Bloodhound?
That's a good point. You would think so, right? I'm gonna restart this.
See when the authentication error.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna. I mean, that should have worked considering the fact that it didn't like give me an error, right? Yeah, it didn't give us. Okay, now I'll try to do it again. Okay, so that's still safe from last time. See. Still querying the database. What does it say now? Remote, yeah, just still. Log out says to its database. I don't remember my password. Yeah.
Is anyone in the chat? Has anybody else in the chat been able to successfully?
Yeah. Is anyone else in on the Zoom conference able to like actually make queries in Bloodhound? Let's see. Hmm?
No.
Still didn't work? I'll try one more time. Oh, I'm trying it one more time. It worked?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you do screen share on Zoom?
You did the exact thing.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be some weird issue. Do you know how to do it on Zoom? You can specify the screen because it's just kind of Oh, you actually allowed to. Okay, that's sweet. So,
Oh wait.
Bloodhound. Okay, so everyone should be able to see Brandon's screen now. So this is what the output you should look like. We're getting some weird errors. I don't know if anyone else in the chat is getting similar errors. But this is what it would look like. So what query do you use to do? So he said one of the pre-built queries on the left, find the shortest path to domain admins, just to test it out. So do a search for svc-alfresco, because that's the users that we know we have permissions of. So click on node info. I will click on, yeah. Okay, so now we have a bunch of info about this specific user. So basically, any sort of permissions it has, any groups it's a part of, any members it's a part of, if it is a group or not. So if you do, click on first degree group memberships. Just the number 2, yeah. So we can see here that SVC Alfresco is a member of domain users and service accounts. So this is just showing you sort of like the basics of how to use Bloodhound and the kind of information you can get from it. A really cool thing you can do is at the very top, you can actually do a roadmap of like, you know what user you are and you want to get to a certain place. What's the quickest path to get there if I can even get there? So in our case, yeah, we're going to click on pathfinding. We're going to start from SVC Alfresco because that's the user that we know we have control over. We currently are that user, and we want to become the administrator. So just type in administrator. And you want to do, keep typing it? Yeah, administrators at acb.local. And you see here, it'll basically show a path of sort of the quickest way that you can actually become an administrator of this computer and the permissions that you have to get there. So you can see here that it starts at SVC Alfresco. It owns a group called, or a user called LFBR, which I think might be another user that exists on the box. And that's, sorry? Yeah, owns. And that user is a member of Exchange Windows Permissions, which has the right DACL on the entire domain, which is sort of the ideal situation here. So,
Mine has no.
yeah, I figured that. I think
Yeah.
Brandon's box is currently being used, which is why it shows that.
Yeah. Because we still get the.
Yes, yours is the correct one.
Okay.
Wait, share his then.
Do you have the Zoom?
I don't have Zoom on right
Are you able to download, or like, do you have Zoom download?
now. So
Okay.
I did it in browser last time.
Maybe just take a screenshot of that, and then can you send it, put it in the Slack?
Got it.
Yeah. So the reason why Brandon's path looks a little bit different is because a lot of people are working on this box on Hackthebox at the moment. So this is actually permissions that were modified by another user who uses Hackthebox. So it's not like the correct one that will be actually attacking, but it actually shows sort of what we're trying to do. And then I'm about to pull up a screenshot of what it initially should look like. So once he pulls up the screenshot in Slack.
I got it on my
Oh,
Okay.
just put it in the UFCPTC channel.
Oh, it is. I don't know this time. I lost track of the Bloodhound. Oh, there it is.
You already got a screenshot?
Not yet.
Okay.
I was only in Slack.
Oh, okay. So you know how to take a screenshot?
Yes.
That'll
Okay.
save to your. That's going to save to your Windows box. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to get up soon. I'll try to get up as quick as I can.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I think it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Yes,
Okay.
While we're waiting, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
So that's saying Alfresco owns LFBR or the other.
No, Alfresco owns that user, which is what we're going to be attempting to do. So this person here created a user called LFB, and since SLC Alfresco is the one who created it, he owns it, and then he escalated the privileges of that user, which is basically what we're going to be trying to do. But
Isn't that what we
no, that was this box. You want to you and Scott solve together? Sauna. We never got Sauna root though. Yeah, I haven't looked at it. Yeah.
that whole box is like the same.
Mm-hmm. It worked?
It's still loading. Oh my god.
What you're
Hurry up, Slack. There.
It's going to slide on the Cali box.
Because I took the screenshot on the Cali box because I'm very smart.
You just drag and drop it. Did it make the root folder? Awesome.
There.
Thank you very much. Okay, cool. So I'm going to take over here and share. Okay, so here we go. So this is what it should look like. And it should look like for you if you're doing it at home. So as you see here on the top left is he set the path. So we know that we're the user SVC Alfresco. That's who we have control over. And we want to become the admin of this computer. So that's the roadmap that we're trying to take. So what's the quickest path with the permissions that we have to get to administrator? It's a little bit convoluted and crossed over, but it should still work. So you can see here, it starts here. This is SVC Alfresco. It is currently a member of, like you can read here, of a group called service accounts, right? Now this service accounts is a member of a group called privileged IT accounts, which is then a member of account operators at hcb.local. And that has, it's hard to read there, but that says generic all on another group called exchange Windows permissions. What generic all means, basically means that you have all permissions to do whatever you want to that group. So you're not necessarily a member of it, but you can manipulate it. So you can make yourself a member, you can remove users from it, you can change permissions however you want. That's what generic all is. So it's sort of like just full permissions against it. So we know now the Alfresco is a member of a group, which is a member of a group, which is a member of a group, which has complete generic all permissions to this group. And this group has a right DACL to the entire domain. hcb.local and this little diamond means that's the entire domain, which is sort of like what we want. So if you have right DACL against the entire domain, right DACL means that you can write to the ACL. The ACL is the access control list, which means we can change the permissions of the entire domain with those, if we have those permissions, which we do. So that's sort of the path that we're going to be taking to get root on this basically to root this box. Okay. So we're essentially, because like through 3 different degrees, we're essentially a member of account operators, which has generic all to exchange Windows permissions, which has right DACL to the entire domain. Okay. Essentially, it's not straightforward as that. It's not really like we right now have a right DACL. We have to manipulate some stuff so then we can get right DACL. So let me just recap here. So means a member called. Okay, so another thing I need to point out here is, so another thing I have to point out for the exchange Windows permissions actually isn't going to give us everything that we need. And actually everything here isn't shown. This is something that you'd have to know just by researching like Windows permissions, how it sets up. But exchange Windows permissions is actually a member of a group called Exchange Windows Subsystem. Is that what it's called? It's called Exchange Trusted Subsystem. So what that is, that's the group that allows us to change permissions of all users on a computer, as well as any groups on that computer. So since we have generic all on the Exchange Windows permissions, we can add ourselves to the Exchange Trusted Subsystem group, and then that's basically how we're able to get root from there. So that part's a little bit confusing, but it's just important to know that if you have any sort of permissions on Exchange Windows permissions, and you have like basically generic all like we do, you can add yourself to another group called Exchange Trusted Subsystem, which is actually the really important group you want to be a part of because it gives you like full access to the entire domain. It doesn't show it in here, but that's just something that you have to do with some research. So that's what we're basically going to be doing. So now I'm going to go back and share. What am I sharing? This. So go back here. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this now. So now we don't need Bloodhound anymore. We know what we have to do. We can close everything related to that, including the Neo4j. Okay, so we're now going to go back to our evil WinRM. So I'm going to log back in as SVC Alfresco using this command. So we're just basically going back to get our shell as SVC Alfresco. Let me pull the chat here just to make sure. Cool. So just to confirm that we are him. Okay, cool. So what we're gonna want to do now is, so we could escalate the privileges of SVC Alfresco, but it's a little bit more tricky. So it's actually easier to create a whole new user and then escalate that user's privileges. So to do that, we're gonna use the net user command. So I'm just gonna call mine Bobby. So if we do net user, Bobby, and then the password. Password you can set it wherever you want. I'll just call mine password 123, and then do /add. And this is going to create a user called Bobby. Right? So now that we have a user Bobby, what we're going to do is what I was saying before is add Bobby to the Exchange trusted subsystem group, so he has more permissions. So to do that, it's going to be net group Exchange trusted subsystem, and then it's Bobby, our user, /add. And that completed successfully. So we've just added Bobby to the Exchange trusted subsystem. And then we're also going to add ourselves Alfresco to it as well. That's because that's going to give us permissions to also escalate Bobby's permissions even more. So svc-alfresco, and that completed successfully. Okay, so now we have both Bobby and Alfresco in the Exchange trusted subsystem. So now we're going to escalate the privileges of Bobby even more, because just because you're a group of Exchange trusted subsystem doesn't give you everything automatically. It just gives you an easier path to get to everywhere that you need to get to. So that's what we're going to do right now. And we're going to use a tool, an impact script called NTLM relay. So if you don't already have Impacket or downloaded or installed, you want to go to the Impacket's GitHub, which is just GitHub Impacket. And then you make sure you obviously clone this, and then you want to run the install, which is just setup.py, and that'll install everything that Impacket needs for you. And also you have to do like pip install dot, to install all the dependencies. But I think everyone should have, if you were at the last meeting, we did all this, so you should already know how to do that. Or you should already have Impacket installed. So we're actually gonna cd into our Impacket directory, which mine is just stored here. And then I'm gonna go into examples. And these are all the scripts that Impacket has. And you can see that one of them is actually NTLM relay. This one here, or NTLM relay X. That's the one that we're going to use to escalate Bobby's privileges. So the full command for this is going to be Python 3 NTLM relay, the script we're trying to run. And then it's going to be -t to specify the target. We're using the protocol LDAP. And then we're going to specify the IP, 161. This is all being done through LDAP because LDAP is the authentication protocol used by Windows in this specific case. So that's why we have to go in through LDAP. We can't go through like SMB or HTTP or just anything else like that. It has to be through LDAP. Okay, specify the target. And then we're going to specify what we want to do. We want to do -- escalate user. And then we're going to specify our user, which is going to be Bobby in this case. And then now you need to specify, or you don't have to, but you want to specify a port, an HTTP port. So you want to do -- port, and I'm just going to do 8080 because that's the normal one. The reason we have to do this is because this command is actually going to run a local WebSocket on your computer that's going to ask you to authenticate to it, and we're going to give it Alfresco's credentials. So that's the credentials that it's going to use in order to escalate Bobby's privileges. Running just this command on its own without giving it credentials, like Alfresco's credentials, is not going to help us at all because we're not authenticated to anything, so we don't actually technically have any permissions. What we want to do is pass in those credentials so it works. I'm not sure why Impacket decided to run it as a WebSocket instead of just letting us add it in the command line. Just, I guess, their choice. But that's how we have to do it. So that's how we're going to do it. So I'm just going to hit enter here to run this. Let that start up. So the server started waiting for connection. So since I started my port on port 8080, if I go to Firefox now, and I go to my local host, port 8080, it's going to ask me to authenticate. So this is where we put in Alfresco's credentials. So svc-alfresco for the username, and then service with a 3 for the password. Hit OK there. And now, if we go back to our terminal, it's going to show some more output, and now it's just running through all of its stuff. We'll let that run. SVC Alfresco. So that's what I was talking about before, that we could do that, but I think there's an extra step you have to do, because I've tried it a couple times and it wasn't working for me. So it ended up working whenever I just created a new user. Huh?
You just straight up add the IP.
Yeah, do 127.0.0.1 and then port 8080. That's the port specified. You can just up at the top there. Yeah, you put in SVC Alfresco. What did you say, Brandon?
This guy did.
Okay.
And then when he did that, he went to
The priv exchange folder.
like instead of client requested path.
Yeah. Oh, actually, so have I. Let me try that.
I've seen it, but I don't know what it is.
Because it should have worked by now, and I actually don't know what it is either. I'm going to Control-C that and run this again. And I'm going to go to /. So I'm actually going to go to /priv exchange here instead of just like the root directory. Is that how you spell it? And it's going to automatically authenticate because I did it before. And we're going to see if that. It should work for Bobby as well. But if this doesn't work, then we'll try Alfresco. Did he have to add Alfresco to the Exchange Trusted Subsystem group? No. Okay. Well, it doesn't seem to be working right now, so maybe we'll try that.
But we're already in.
I don't know if we are. Okay. I'm going to try to just do SVC Alfresco instead of Bobby. Refresh that. Yeah, see, mine gets stuck here and it doesn't keep going.
I get stuck at user code just not create user.
And that's it? Okay, I'm going to try to add myself to the Exchange Windows subsystem. Right? No? Exchange Windows permissions? Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so let's try now.
You did Alfresco or no?
I did Alfresco, and I'm escalating Alfresco. Sure. Okay. Okay, that worked. Okay, so
We have to get to that.
okay, so we did a little troubleshooting here, but what we had to do actually was add. We didn't even have to create a new user. We could just stick with SVC Alfresco. If you just add SVC Alfresco to the Exchange Windows Permissions group with this command here, this will add Alfresco to that group directly. Because I remember in Bloodhound, it showed that we were a member of, which had like generic all on that group. we now were able to add ourselves immediately to that group because of the permissions that we had.
Okay.
So now we're like a direct member of Exchange Windows permissions. Make sense? We're using this command. So now once you've done that, if we go back to the ntlm relay command, the command I use here, again, we're ignoring the Bobby user now because we actually didn't need him. We could just do it with Alfresco. We're escalating just Alfrescos, and you can see here, once we authenticated to the Priv Exchange, I'm not sure why you actually had to put specifically Priv Exchange. That's probably something to Google. But once we authenticated to that, you can see here the output, modifying the domain ACL, querying domain security, and it says success. That's how we know we're able to actually get escalate the privileges of SVC Alfresco. It says here, success, try using DC sync with secretsdump.py, which is actually what we're going to do next. So if anyone have any questions about what we've done so far, it's probably confusing. Even I'm a little bit confused. But everyone get to this point? Were you able to get to it?
I got to where it says success and then dumping domain for the first time.
Oh, no.
Wait.
Okay, awesome. So you got that. So go to the ntlm. Oh, wait. Okay, you're awesome. Good. Okay, you can control C that. All right, so now that this is done, I'm going to control C it here. So the next command we're going to run is called secretsdump.py. If you guys remember, I think I talked about secretsdump.py in the last meeting and how it works. But if not, I'll recap. Secretsdump.py basically looks for for hashes in a computer in basically two locations. One is in registers or registries, because a lot of time hashes are stored in there. Another place is in .dit files, which will also be used to store password hashes for the Windows computer needs it to do certain things, and that's where it's stored. That's where it's going to look for it and try to grab hashes from. So that'll give us the hashes. It won't give us the clear text passwords, but then we can use those hashes either to crack it or we can do pass the hash. So actually, let's start by getting the hashes, and then I'll explain a little more about pass the hash. So secretsdump.py is, again, another script by Impacket. So we're going to keep in the same direction that we're in right now. Do Python 3 secretsdump.py. And then we're going to specify http.local, which is the domain name. And then we're going to do SVC Alfresco, our user that we have escalated, colon the password, which is service with a 3. And then we're going to do at the IP. So that is the command for secretsdump.py that we're going to use. Hit enter there. It says we got an error. Access denied. Use -VSS. Let's try that. Did it work for you, Daniel? Okay. The distinguished name specified for this replication operation is invalid. Did I spell it right? I spelled it right? Just this. No, getting access denied. You know what I'm going to try to do? I'm going to try to do it with Bobby. So we're going to do this for Bobby. And then we're going to go back to our NTM relay. And we're going to try to escalate Bobby this time. No, not at all. That's so weird.
Oh, yeah. So now, why did you put in my
Yeah, I feel like this box is pretty glitchy. I'm not exactly sure why it's not working. Did it work for anyone else? Didn't work? The distinguished name specified as verification operation is invalid. The distinguished name. Why is it invalid? I'll look back at my notes here.
Would you dash easy? All that in it.
I mean, it tries that. I feel like it says in the output that it tries to do that, but then it says it's wrong. Yeah. The distinguished name specified for the replication operation is invalid. The distinguished name. What is that? Oh. Wrong, purposely wrong name. Okay. The distinguished name. Does it work for you, Brandon, if you try it? Huh?
Like I closed.
Oh, okay.
the box.
Well, we've done everything initially.
Yeah, I was pretty on that.
You have to do anything here?
All right, done.
Yeah. I think this box is very glitchy. What about you?
I'm trying to enter what you entered.
Okay.
Try to find one. Well, I don't know if that'll work.
No, it won't work otherwise.
Because won't it just revert to three if you just click
Yeah.
on?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But who's getting this, you know?
I mean, yeah, I've gotten this is the same output I've gotten.
Yeah.
Go back to your provisioning. It's gonna be a while back.
What provisioning? Oh, like the command?
The original. I meant like the output.
I'll just run it again. But now it's not working. If I try to go to like slash, like it just it halts at the like dumped everything to the yeah, it stops here. No. But I got it to go all the way through before when I had it like
Yeah. And it said, try using
yeah. Where did I? There it is. Yeah, you see? It has, yeah, replication change all permissions on the domain, which should have made it work now. Unless the box was reset or something. Let me, very frustrating. I'll add it again and then I'll run it again. Yeah. Okay. I'm actually gonna keep this running and I'm gonna run the, just in case. CD prompt.
No, when you didn't use Alfresco.
I did yeah, I'm using Alfresco in this case. Let's see if it works this time. What's the? They didn't put the password? Oh, here we go. It worked. Okay. So that was a bit strange. The box maybe got reset or something. But I'll just recap everything I did just so people don't have to like try to figure out everything I was trying to do. Inside of Evil Winter M as SVC Alfresco, I added Alfresco to the Exchange Windows Permissions group. That's all I did. You can ignore the new user like Bobby. You don't have to create him or mess with him at all. We'll just focus on Alfresco. So you add him to Exchange Windows Permissions group with this command here. Then what you do is you want to run this command, the NTLM relay command. You want to escalate specifically Alfresco, because again, we're not dealing with Bobby anymore. We're just doing Alfresco, specifying the port. Once you start running this, you go to your browser, you go to your local host, the port that you specified, and then /privexchange. You hit enter. It'll ask you to enter in the creds of SVC Alfresco. You just put in SVC Alfresco in service. You hit enter. Then you should start you give it a minute, and it should get output like this. You should see something like success. User Alfresco now has replication get changes all privileges, and that's how you know it's working. I would leave this running just to be sure. Open up a new terminal, and then run the secret stump command with giving it Alfresco's credentials. And this is going to give you a lot of hashes, like a lot. Most of them are useless because they're just like machine hashes that we're not going to be able to use or crack. The one that we care about though is going to be HTTP local administrator, because that gives us admin on the computer. Rio, you get to that?
No. Right now, I'm still at secret dumps.
All right, so can you go to keyboard RM? It worked for you, Daniel? Yeah. That was the issue.
Or maybe I had something to do with leaving
Okay, now try running the ETL on this command.
well, now instead of remote operation.
And you go to your browser.
So then you should
And do /. All right, go back to your terminal. You probably did that. I can go to the ETL. Okay. Oh yeah, leave that open. Now go to the secret stuff one.
Oh, you
run that now.
Oh, right. Is it because we did that with the first time?
It's another.
You get another fail.
Oh wait, give it a second. Oh, there you go. Cool.
Okay,
So now you got it.
got it.
All right, awesome. So now we're at this point. We have the administrator hash. There's a couple things you could do, or basically there's two things you can do. You can either try to crack it, or you can do something a lot easier called pass the hash, which basically we use this hash essentially as our password, and it just authenticates, and we don't have to crack it at all. You can only do pass the hash if the password is NTLM. If it's NTLM version 2, you cannot do pass the hash on it, and you can only hope to try to crack it. This is an NTLM password, so we are going to be able to do pass the hash on it. What pass the hash is essentially, usually when you're authenticating to Active Directory, you send it the password. That password gets hashed, and then it gets checked against the hash that's on the Active Directory computer. But in a vulnerability NTLM lets you just send the hash alone, and then it'll just try to check that hash against its own in its database, and then lets you through if it matches. So that we have the hash, we don't have to crack it anymore, we can just pass it over. So now that we have this, to pass this hash, I'm gonna go ahead and copy it, or yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and copy it here, this whole thing. And then we're gonna open up a new tab here, and it's another Impacket tool. Impacket is pretty great, not gonna lie. And it's gonna be WMI exec, which is like Windows management. And it's letting you, and it has an option to pass the hash. So we're gonna do -hashes, and then we're gonna specify, we're gonna paste what we have. But it's just the very last section. So everything before this colon here, we're gonna remove. Just gonna remove all of that, and it's just gonna be that. But then you also have to include the colon there. And then we're gonna, at the very end of this, we're gonna specify the username, administrator. That's what the hash was for, and then at the IP. All right, so we've given it the hash and then the username. Hit enter. I'm gonna let that run. And now we have a shell. Let's see, who am I? And we are now administrator. So we have just successfully rooted this box. We are now admin on this computer. So now if I cd into, or if I do ls, here we are, or dir, sorry. If I cd into users, cd into administrator, and then go into desktop, I think is where it's at, or I spelled that wrong, desktop. And we see we have the root flag. So if I just open that up, and boom, we now have the root flag. So now we've just rooted this entire box. So just as a quick recap for how we got root, we used Bloodhound to see all the permissions that we have as the Alfresco user. We figured out that we were actually a member of we were linked in some sort of way to the Exchange Windows permissions group. So we directly added ourselves in the evilwinrm PowerShell command line. And then we ran NTLM relay, which allowed us to escalate those permissions even further, which then gave us the ability to get the hashes for basically all of the users on the system, including administrator. And then we then use pass to hash to pass it into to the computer using the WMI exec in Impacket and get a shell as admin. So yeah, any questions at all? If not, that's going to end the meeting for today. Thank you guys for coming, and I'll see you guys next time.